Friends, we are in the midst of our stewardship campaign, our intentional focus on how we are invited and how we respond to share our gifts. We have a physical symbol here to remind you of our ancient history, these communion serving elements, our golden paten, where you can put in your pledge card for financial gifts, offerings. You know, it does take money to run the church, right? I talked with a colleague earlier this week, and she said something like, you know, I remind people that grace is free, but church is expensive. So indeed, we appreciate the sharing of those gifts. But as I was talking with the children, it's not just a particular kind of gift, not one sort of gift that the divine asks of us. God doesn't just want you to use your money to do amazing work, to do crack-filling work, as in supporting Pathways work and ministry. God wants everything that you are, all that you have, to be put forward to God's ways of love, justice, and peace. But somehow we and our ancestors kept asking that question, what does God want? What does God want? What does God want from me? Right, and last week, we explored this a little bit as we were exploring Romans chapter 12, looking at some of Paul's words, some of Paul's advice to the community, the church that was growing, that was forming in Rome. And he spoke with them, he wrote to them about transforming their minds so that they might be able to discern what is good and what is right and what is acceptable, what is perfect for God. What is God's will? What does God want? You know, he could have just looked to his ancestor. Right? We just heard these words from Micah, who was in the 8th century BCE, before the Common Era, before Jesus was even a thought, a glimmer in the eye of his parents, right? One of those phrases that we use sometimes. So long, centuries before. And the question was asked, right? What does God want from us? Does God want us to bring so much sacrifice, bring all the rams we could possibly muster, even beyond, bring all the oil in all the world, rivers flowing of oil, bring all that to God? Is that what God wants? Does God want me to show up in this building every day of the week and to pray fervently, to sing hymns out loud? Is that what God wants for me to be in this space, to bend my body to God, to give to God all that's in my bank account, to take out loans, to give even more to God, because it reaches that point of absurdity to even to sell my home and do without anything else, put myself on the street so that I am totally reliant on God? Well, maybe God does want our ultimate alliance, allegiance, loyalty. But the prophet here is taking us to the brink. Actually, we jump over the edge here. In no way could one human being give all of that to God. Know what God wants from us. We are informed, mortals that we are, human beings that we are, kind of being reminded who we are, being put in our place. Amazing. We're wonderful, right? We remember Genesis, that we are created in the image and in the likeness of God. The divine is within us, is about us. And we are mortal. We have limitations. We have places where we end. We are fallible. What does God want from beings such as us? Beautiful, gifted, amazing, limited beings that we are. Simple. Easy peasy as 1, 2, 3, right? Only 3 things, Micah said. Only 3 things that God wants from you. You can take a pen out and write this. Never mind. You don't even have to take a pen out and write this down because you'll remember it. Do justice. Love kindness. And walk humbly with God. You probably already knew that, right? You had that in your mind, like, oh yeah, I remember that. Simple. To the point. So hard. Because we say, yeah, we need to do justice, but what does that mean? What does that actually require of us? Well, justice is not just about calling out injustice. I know in our opening hymn we did sing about that, crying out for justice, but then the verse continued on and it was to making justice happen. It requires action. Not only a post, not only a comment, bemoaning the injustices of our world, but actually getting involved and engaged in transforming the systems that perpetuate, that continue to spew out injustice. Some of you are familiar with the sermon, the speech that Martin Luther King gave on Beyond Vietnam. And in that speech, in that sermon, he spoke about the Good Samaritan. And he spoke about Jericho Road. And he said that, yes, flinging a coin to a beggar, actually helping somebody in need, doing works of charity, giving clothes, winter clothes, so that people without them might have something to wear, donating food to a food pantry. These things are necessary and needed, and they are a beginning piece. They are a first step. They are an initial action. He went on to say, at some point, though, we got to look to the road. We have to look to the system that is pumping out injustice, that continues to beat people up and leave them for dead on the side of the road. We need to transform that system. We need to make a system. We need to create a world, co-create with one another and with our God, a world where there are no cracks, where the families of pathways are falling through because they don't make little enough to qualify for government assistance. They make just too much, but they don't make enough that they can pay their bills, that they can get their kids into quality childcare, that they can get quality health care for their families. We are invited, we are called, we are challenged. Indeed, we get the invitation, we get more than an invitation, we get the requirement here. This is something that we must do. And if that weren't enough, that's plenty. Do that justice, but it's connected with the second and with the third pieces, at least in my mind. I almost came out today and said, 3 things said in a different way, all the same, because they're so interconnected and related. But we move from doing justice to loving kindness. So the word used here for loving kindness, this is the word that is used for the love that God has for us, chesed. It is that steadfast love, that covenantal love. And it's not just a feeling. It's not only an emotion. Our feelings matter, okay? Our emotions matter. Don't hear me saying that they don't. We need to attend to them. I talk with my 8-year-old all the time about the importance of managing his emotions. Our emotions help to inform us. So I am not seeking to diminish our emotions here, okay? And Chesed is about an action as well. It invites our commitment, our loyalty, and our involvement. We are called not to just put up with, to deal with, to manage somehow chesed, this loving kindness, this commitment and loyalty, but to love it. This is a love that it's not just about God having this love for us or us having this love for God. This is the kind of love we're invited to have for each other. You might look around this room and say, yeah, I could get to loving these people. But I don't think God draws such small boundaries. I believe that we are invited, that we are called, that we are challenged, and we are inspired, we are required to love loving each and every member of God's family. That is the whole of the universe. And if there are other universes, like the children were saying, that includes them too. That's a little harder ask. Not just to tolerate, that I'm supposed to actually wholly, fully love this other one with my actions. But I gotta love doing that. Yeah, a hard one. It can be hard enough just to love those people around your family Thanksgiving table, right? Holidays coming right around. And then there's that third piece. And I think it's the only thing that makes those other two possible. And that is that we are invited, that we are challenged, that we are called to journey with the divine throughout the entirety of our lives. Every step of the way. To consider, how is God inviting me to respond? What is it that God is asking of me? How is God empowering me and inspiring me to love in this moment, to do justice in this moment? I was thinking about this on my drive to church today as well, thinking like, okay, well, what does God want here? And I don't know that has to be an every single moment kind of thing, because a lot of decisions. We get decision fatigue already, enough as it is, right? And that's a part of where commitment comes in. I think that we're invited to stop, to consider, perhaps to take a season of discernment, to consider how it is that God is empowering us, how God has gifted us, how God is inviting us to commit our lives to love and to justice. Maybe you'd call that stewardship season. Maybe, I don't know, just throwing something out there. But when we are doing our most deep, thoughtful consideration, what is it that God wants of us? How has God gifted us? How can we perceive what is happening in the rest of the world and meet those needs and acknowledge what's happening, where the good is happening, and partner with that and see where harm is happening and offer healing there? But to take a moment for discernment, for reflection, so that we then commit. So it's not every moment. Every Sunday, you don't have to ask, am I going to show up to church? You've already decided, I'm going to worship at least this many times a month. Weekly, I totally accept that, okay? But I get that you have other requests and calls and commitments in your lives as well. But to commit to something, so that's not in every single moment, every minute of your life, you have to make that choice, make that decision. But to take the time now and here. And then to move forward with some humility. to continue to go with God, because friends, God goes with you wherever you go. But to be attentive to that presence, the divine, the love, the embrace that is with you always. And to remember that you don't have to do it all either. That's one of those pieces about humility. Humility reminds us not to be arrogant, to realize as those opening lines, God has told you, O mortal, O human one, O limited and gifted one. Humility reminds us who we are. We are not God. We do not know everything that there is. We don't know all the possibilities that are present. And we have tremendous capabilities to reason, to connect with one another, to sing and be silly, as the kids always remind us. So finding that middle space where we reside and where beauty can and does spring forth, to journey with the divine with that understanding. Again, Paul used this same sort of message hundreds of years later. So he proclaimed this, shared this with the Romans, that they were invited to think soberly of themselves, right? Be honest with yourself. Be honest about your beauty and be honest about your faults. Friends, it's as simple as that. Do justice, love loving, that committed, wholehearted, whole-bodied, everything love, active love. And live your lives humbly with God, as simple as that. And as hard, and as challenging, and as difficult as that. God has made it clear, and does each and every moment, what God desires of us, and that is to create beauty and love and joy, to offer healing and wholeness, to fill cracks where they are, to create systems and institutions, policies, procedures that make it so there are no cracks. To love wholeheartedly, to love whole-bodily, to love with our whole minds. Our God, of course, and one another. And one another outside of this space. Friends, I'm going to give you a few moments for that reflection, that discernment, that opening to the divine, that time to make yourself aware. You are in God's presence. And God is intentionally seeking to engage with you in this moment and in each and every one that is to follow. Some of you might call that prayer. I call that prayer. I call that life. Friends, I'm going to offer you a moment to reflect, to meditate, to consider, to open yourselves ever wider to the presence of God that is with you, that is within you. How is God inviting you to do justice? How has God gifted you to love kindness? And how is God encouraging you, empowering you, and inspiring you to go on that journey, to live your lives wholly, fully, humbly with God? Friends, let us be together now for a moment of reflection, a moment of quiet. Let us be together now for a moment of pause.